The silence in space was broken by the soft hum of the Galactic Union survey vessel Harmony's Edge. Commander Taemin stood on the bridge, looking at the large screen that showed nothing but stars and empty space. His ship had been patrolling this area for 3 weeks now, checking for pirates and making sure trade routes stayed safe. "Commander," called out his communications officer, So Young, "I'm getting something strange on the long-range scanners." Taemin walked over to her station. So Young was one of the best at her job, and she rarely got excited about scanner readings. If she thought something was strange, it probably was. "What do you see?" Taemin asked. "There's a ship out there," So Young said, pointing at her screen. "It's not moving. No power readings either. Looks like it's just floating." Dr. Yuna looked up from her research station. She was the ship's chief scientist and always interested in new discoveries. "How big is it?" "Medium size," So Young replied. "About the same as our ship, maybe a little smaller. But here's the weird part. It's human." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about humans, of course. They had joined the Galactic Union only 50 years ago. Most aliens still thought of them as the new kids who didn't know much about space travel. Their ships were basic, their weapons simple, and their technology far behind everyone else's. "A human ship?" Captain Dong Ho asked. He was the tactical officer and always worried about security. "What's it doing way out here?" "I don't know," So Young said. "But it looks damaged. Really damaged." Taemin thought about this. Human ships didn't usually travel alone this far from their space. They liked to stay close to home and travel in groups. Finding one out here, damaged and powerless, was very strange. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The image that appeared made everyone gasp. The human ship looked like it had been through hell. Large holes were torn in its hull. Parts of it were twisted and bent. Burn marks covered most of its surface. It was spinning slowly, like a dead whale in the ocean. "Can you identify the ship?" Taemin asked. So Young worked at her controls for a moment. "Yes, sir. It's the UES Indomitable. According to our records, it's a destroyer-class vessel, about 5 years old." Dr. Yuna stood up and walked closer to the screen. "Look at that damage. What could have done that to a ship?" "Battle damage," Captain Dong Ho said grimly. "Someone shot the hell out of that thing." Taemin studied the floating wreck. Something about it bothered him, but he couldn't figure out what. The damage looked fresh, maybe only a few days old. But there had been no reports of fighting in this area. "Any life signs?" he asked. So Young checked her instruments. "None. The ship is cold and dead." "Sir," Engineer Hei Wan spoke up from his station. "I think we should take a closer look. Human ships aren't supposed to be this far out, and that damage pattern is strange." "Strange how?" Taemin asked. "Well, it looks like battle damage, but some of those holes are perfectly round. Most weapons leave jagged tears. This looks almost surgical." Taemin made his decision. As a Union commander, it was his job to investigate things like this. A damaged human ship in neutral space could mean many things. Maybe pirates had attacked it. Maybe there was some new threat out here. Either way, they needed to know. "Take us closer," he ordered, "but keep our shields up and weapons ready." The Harmony's Edge moved toward the human ship. As they got closer, everyone could see more details. The human vessel was built very differently from Union ships. Where their ship had smooth, flowing lines, the human ship looked boxy and industrial. It was all straight edges and thick armor plating. "Look at how thick their hull is," Dr. Yuna said with interest. "It must be 3 times thicker than ours." "Humans always build everything too heavy," Captain Dong Ho said. "They don't understand elegant design." But Hei Wan looked thoughtful. Or maybe they expect their ships to get shot at a lot. When they were close enough, Taemin could see that the human ship was much more damaged than it first appeared. Whole sections were torn open. Internal structures were visible through the holes. But strangely, the ship still looked solid. Despite all the damage, it hadn't broken apart. "Scan the interior," Taemin ordered. So Young worked her controls. "The inside is a mess, but the basic structure is still sound. Most of the internal systems are offline, but some backup systems might still work. Any dangerous materials, radiation, chemical leaks? Nothing dangerous that I can detect. The ship appears to be safe to board." Taemin thought about their options. They could just report the derelict ship and let someone else deal with it. But this was a chance to learn something about human military technology. The Union knew very little about how human warships actually worked. Their scientists would love to get a look inside one. "Prepare a boarding party," he decided. "Dr. Yuna, you'll lead the science team. Captain Dong-ho, take a security squad. Engineer Hae-won, I want you to check their systems." "What about you, sir?" Dr. Yuna asked. "I'm coming too. This is too important to leave to others." Within an hour, they had suited up and prepared for the boarding. The Harmony's edge moved close to the human ship and extended a docking tube. The connection was successful, and soon they were walking through the airlock into the damaged vessel. The first thing that hit them was how different everything looked. Human ships were built like fortresses. The corridors were narrow and lined with thick metal. Everything was painted in dull gray colors. There were no decorations or artistic touches like you'd find on other species' ships. "It's so cramped," Dr. Yuna said as they walked down the main corridor. "And dark," added So Young, shining her light. "Around." Emergency lighting flickered weakly in some areas, giving just enough light to see. The air was stale but breathable. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the empty hallways. As they moved deeper into the ship, Taemin noticed something. That made him uneasy. Despite all the external damage, the interior corridors were mostly intact. It was as if the ship had been built to survive exactly this kind of attack. "Commander," Hae-won called from up ahead. "You need to see this." They hurried to where the engineer was standing. He was looking at a section of the corridor wall that had been partially blown away. Through the hole, they could see what looked like another corridor running parallel to the one they were in. "Double hulls," Hae-won said quietly. "The humans built double hulls with separate corridors. Even if the outer hull is breached, people can still move around inside." Taemin stared at the revelation. Most ships had single hulls. If they were breached, that section became unusable. But humans had built their ship with backup corridors, backup systems, backup everything. "Why would they do that?" Dr. Yuna asked. "Because they expected to get shot," Captain Dong-ho said grimly. "They built this thing to keep fighting even after taking massive damage." As they continued exploring the dead ship, Taemin began to realize they might have been wrong about humans. Maybe their technology wasn't primitive at all. Maybe it was just designed for a completely different kind of warfare than anyone else in the galaxy understood. The team spent the next several hours exploring the human ship. Each new room they entered revealed more surprises about how differently humans built their vessels. Dr. Yuna was fascinated by everything she saw, taking detailed scans and notes about the strange human technology. "Look at these walls," she said, running her hand along the corridor. "They're not just thick, they're made of layers. Metal, foam, more metal, some kind of ceramic. It's like wearing armor under your armor." Engineer Hae-won nodded as he examined the construction. "Every single wall is built like this, even the interior walls that should never see combat. These humans don't take any chances." They found the ship's reactor room first. Captain Dong-ho insisted on checking it for radiation before they went inside. When the readings came back safe, they opened the heavy blast doors and stepped into a room that made them all stop and stare. The reactor was huge, much bigger than it needed to be for a ship this size. Most Union vessels had reactors about the size of a small room. This one filled a space as big as their entire cargo bay. "This is impossible," Haywan said, checking his instruments. This reactor should power a ship 3 times bigger than this one. Maybe humans are just wasteful with energy, So Young suggested. But Dr. Yuna was studying the reactor's design on her scanner. No, I don't think so. Look at these power distribution channels. This reactor isn't just big. It's designed to keep working even if large parts of it are destroyed. She pointed to different sections of the massive machine. See these separate chambers? Each one can work alone. You could destroy half of this reactor and it would still provide power. Tae-min was beginning to see a pattern. Everything on this ship was built with backups. Not just one backup, but multiple backups. It was as if humans expected their ships to be shot to pieces, but still keep fighting. They moved on to the weapon systems. The ship had several large gun turrets, most of them damaged by whatever had attacked the vessel. Captain Dong Ho was eager to examine them, thinking he might learn something about human military capabilities. What he found made him very uncomfortable. These aren't normal kinetic cannons, he told the others as they gathered around one of the weapons. Look at these magnetic coils. They're designed to accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. How incredible? Tae-min asked. Dong-ho ran some calculations on his portable computer. If I'm reading this right, these weapons fire rounds at about 10% of light speed. Everyone went quiet. Most ship weapons fired projectiles at maybe 1% of light speed. 10% was getting into the range where the projectiles would hit with the force of nuclear weapons. That can't be right, Dr. Yuna said. Weapons that powerful would need massive amounts of energy. That's why they have that huge reactor, Haywan realized. The whole ship is built around these weapons. But that wasn't the most disturbing thing Captain Dong-ho found. In the ammunition storage area, he discovered rounds that were unlike anything he'd ever seen. Each projectile was about the size of his arm and incredibly dense. But more importantly, they were smart. These aren't just chunks of metal, he explained to the others. Each round has its own targeting system and small maneuvering thrusters. They can adjust their course after being fired. You mean they're guided missiles? Tae-min asked. No, they're kinetic rounds that can steer themselves. I've never seen anything like it. So Young made an even more disturbing discovery when she accessed the ship's communication systems. She had expected to find simple radio equipment, the kind most species used for ship-to-ship communication. Instead, she found something much more sophisticated. Commander, you need to see this, she called from the communications room. When the others arrived, So Young was staring at a wall covered with communication equipment. There were dozens of different transmitters, receivers, and processing units. This isn't just for talking to other ships, she explained. This system can coordinate with thousands of different devices simultaneously. Look at these network protocols. They're designed to manage entire fleets in real time. But this is just one ship, Dr. Yuna pointed out. Exactly, So Young said. Why would one ship need communication equipment this sophisticated unless... Unless what? Tae-min asked. Unless every human ship is connected to every other human ship. All the time. The implications of this hit everyone at once. Most galactic species operated their ships independently. They might coordinate during battles, but each ship was essentially on its own. But if humans networked all their ships together, sharing information instantly, they wouldn't just be fighting as individual ships, Captain Dong-ho said slowly. They'd be fighting as one giant organism. Engineer Haywan found the next surprise in the ship's manufacturing bay. Most ships carried spare parts and basic repair equipment. The human ship had what looked like a complete factory. They can build anything, he said, showing the others the fabrication equipment. Weapons, ammunition, spare parts, even components. Give them raw materials and they can manufacture whatever they need. That's not normal, Tae-min said. Most ships depend on supply bases for major repairs. But if you can make your own parts, you never need to go home, Dr. Yuna realized. You could stay out here fighting forever. The medical bay was perhaps the most disturbing discovery of all. Dr. Yuna had expected to find basic first aid equipment and maybe a small surgical unit. Instead, she found what looked like a complete emergency hospital. The surgical equipment was designed for major trauma surgery. There were automated systems that could perform operations without a doctor present. The medicine storage contained drugs she didn't recognize, but her scanner indicated they were powerful stimulants and pain blockers. "Look at these restraints," she said, pointing to the surgical beds. "They're designed to hold someone down during surgery. Maybe for rough space conditions?" So Young suggested. "No," Dr. Yuna said grimly. "These are designed to hold someone who's fighting, someone who doesn't want to be treated." She showed them other equipment, systems for treating radiation poisoning, chemical exposure, and severe burns. Everything was automated and could work even if the medical staff was dead or unconscious. "They expect their people to keep fighting even when they're badly hurt," she concluded. "This whole medical bay is designed to patch people up quickly and send them back to battle." But the most chilling discovery came when they reached the ship's computer core. So Young managed to access some of the databases and began downloading information about the ship's recent activities. "This ship has been operating alone for months," she reported. "Look at these navigation logs. They've been to dozens of different systems all by themselves." "That's impossible," Captain Dong-ho said. "No one operates single ships that far from support." "Humans do," So Young replied. "And look at this. They haven't just been traveling. They've been mapping everything. Star charts, planet surveys, defensive positions. This ship has detailed information about Union military bases across half the galaxy." Taemin felt a chill run down his spine. "They've been spying on us." "Not just spying," So Young said. "Learning. Every system they've visited, every defense they've seen, it's all been recorded and analyzed. And look at this." She showed them communication logs indicating the ship had been sending regular reports back to human space. Everything they learned, every weakness they discovered, was being shared with the entire human fleet. As the team prepared to move deeper into the ship, Taemin couldn't shake the feeling that they had been completely wrong about humans. These weren't primitive newcomers stumbling around the galaxy. They were conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation he'd ever seen. And if one damaged ship could carry this much advanced technology, what were their fully operational warships capable of? The human ship suddenly didn't feel like a derelict anymore. It felt like a sleeping predator waiting for the right moment to wake up and show its teeth. As the boarding team continued their exploration, each new discovery painted a more disturbing picture of human military thinking. Dr. Yuna found herself both fascinated and frightened by what she was learning about these strange newcomers, too. Galactic civilization. The crew quarters were the next stop on their investigation. Most species designed their living spaces for comfort during long voyages. What Dr. Yuna found in the human ship was completely different. "These aren't beds," she said, examining the crew's sleeping areas. "These are acceleration couches. The human sleeping arrangements looked more like medical equipment than furniture. Each bunk was surrounded by padding and equipped with restraints that could hold a person in place during extreme maneuvers. Look at these ratings," she continued, checking her scanner. "These couches are designed to protect the crew during accelerations. That would kill most species." Engineer Hei-Wan ran some quick calculations. "If I'm reading this right, humans can pull maneuvers that would turn our internal organs to soup." "That's impossible," Captain Dong-ho protested. "No biological creature can survive those forces." But Dr. Yuna was discovering that humans had found ways around biological limitations. The crew quarters contained medical equipment that could inject crew members with drugs to help them survive high-acceleration combat maneuvers. There were also breathing systems that could force oxygen into their lungs when normal breathing became impossible. "They've turned their own bodies into weapons," she said quietly. "They can fight in conditions that would kill anyone else." The environmental systems told the same story. Most galactic species required very specific atmospheric conditions to survive. Small changes in oxygen levels, temperature, or pressure could be fatal. But the human ship's life support systems were designed to keep working even when everything else failed. Look at these backup systems, HFY said, tracing power lines through the walls. They have backups for their backups, and emergency systems that can run on almost no power. More disturbing was what the systems revealed about human biology. The atmospheric mixture they breathed was toxic to most other species. The temperature they preferred was uncomfortably hot. Even their gravity was stronger than what most aliens could handle for extended periods. They've evolved on a death world, Dr. Yuna realized. Everything about their biology is designed for survival in harsh conditions. So Young made another unsettling discovery in the ship's database. She had been trying to access more information about the ship's mission when she stumbled across something that made her call for the others immediately. "You need to see this," she said when they gathered around her workstation. "I found their self-destruct system. Every ship had some kind of self-destruct mechanism, usually designed to prevent sensitive technology from falling into enemy hands. But the human system was unlike anything they had ever seen." "This isn't just a self-destruct," So Young explained. "It's a weapon. The explosive yield is massive, enough to destroy anything within several kilometers." Captain Dong Ho studied the specifications with growing alarm. This would take out multiple enemy ships if they were close enough. Every human vessel is essentially a giant bomb. "But why would they design it that way?" Dr. Yuna asked. "Because they plan to use it," Dong Ho replied grimly. "This is designed for kamikaze attacks. They're willing to die to take their enemies with them." The medical bay revealed even more disturbing secrets about human psychology. Dr. Yuna had been puzzled by some of the medical equipment she'd found earlier. Now she was beginning to understand its true purpose. The surgical systems weren't just for treating wounded crew members. They were designed to keep people fighting even when they should be dead. Automatic injectors could pump stimulants and painkillers into wounded humans, allowing them to continue fighting with injuries that would incapacitate other species. "Look at these trauma protocols," she said, reviewing the medical computers. "Files. They're designed to keep humans conscious and functional even with severe injuries. There were procedures for operating with broken bones, damaged organs, and massive blood loss. The medical systems could perform emergency surgery to keep someone alive just long enough to complete their mission. They don't retreat when they're wounded," Dr. Yuna realized. "They fight until they're dead." But the most terrifying discovery was still to come. So Young had been working to decrypt more of the ship's databases when she found files that changed everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. "Commander," she called, her voice shaking. "I found their real mission files." When the others gathered around her, So Young displayed a series of documents that made everyone go silent. The files contained detailed intelligence reports on every major species in the Galactic Union. Military capabilities, defensive positions, economic centers, population centers, everything. "They've been mapping our entire civilization," she said. "Every trade route, every military base, every important planet. It's all here." But that wasn't the worst part. The intelligence reports included detailed biological analyses of every species they'd encountered. Genetic information, physiological, weaknesses, behavioral patterns, everything needed to wage biological warfare. "They've been studying us like laboratory animals," Dr. Yuna said, reading through files about her own species. "They know exactly how to kill each of us." Captain Dong Ho found weapons specifications that confirmed their worst fears. The humans had developed biological agents targeted at specific species. They could kill Velthari while leaving humans unharmed, or target multiple species simultaneously while sparing others. "This is genocide planning," he said quietly. "They're preparing to wipe out entire species." Engineer HFY discovered manufacturing specifications that showed humans could produce these weapons using the fabrication equipment found on every ship. They didn't need special facilities or rare materials. Any human vessel could become a biological weapons factory. "Every ship in their fleet is a potential weapon of mass destruction," he reported. But the files revealed something even more chilling. The human intelligence operation wasn't just about gathering information. It was about preparing for total war. Every diplomatic mission, every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange had been part of a massive data-gathering operation. While we thought they were trying to fit into galactic society, Taemin said, they were actually preparing to destroy it. The strategic files showed that humans didn't think like other species. Most galactic civilizations fought limited wars, with specific goals. Humans planned for total warfare scenarios where entire species might need to be exterminated. Their battle doctrine assumed that any war would eventually target human civilian populations. So they had prepared for the possibility that they might need to commit genocide to ensure their own species' survival. They don't fight to win battles, Captain Dong Ho realized. They fight to win wars, complete total wars where only one side survives. The files showed detailed plans for targeting critical infrastructure across the galaxy. Power plants, communication, networks, food production facilities. Humans had identified the weak points that could bring down entire civilizations. They had also prepared for the possibility that Earth itself might be destroyed. Hidden bases, backup colonies, mobile fleets that could continue fighting even if their homeworld was gone. Humanity had prepared to survive as a species even in the worst possible scenarios. They're not just warriors, Dr. Yuna said, reading. Through the psychological profiles humans had compiled on other species. They're survivors, and they've decided that we might be threats to their survival. As the team prepared to examine the final sections of the ship, Tae-min felt a growing sense of dread. Everything they had discovered suggested that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone in the galaxy had imagined. The humans hadn't joined galactic civilization as equals seeking their place among the stars. They had infiltrated it as potential conquerors, studying their enemies and preparing for a war that might determine which species would dominate the galaxy. And the most terrifying part was that they were probably already winning that war, even though most species didn't know it had started. The team had been exploring the human ship for hours, and each discovery had been more disturbing than the last. Now, as they accessed the ship's primary command center, they were about to learn the full scope of humanity's plans for the galaxy. The bridge of the human vessel was unlike anything they had seen before. Where most species designed their command centers to be comfortable and efficient, the human bridge looked like it was built for war. Every station was armored and could operate independently if other sections were destroyed. Look at these command protocols, So-young said as she accessed the captain's station. They're designed for multiple backup commanders. If the captain dies, the next officer takes over immediately. If they die, the next one takes command. They plan for their leadership to be killed in battle. Commander Tae-min studied the bridge layout. Every critical system had manual backups. Even if all the computers were destroyed, humans could still fight their ship using mechanical controls. They expect to lose everything and keep fighting, he observed. But it was when So-young finally cracked the ship's primary mission database that they learned the true horror of what humans had been doing since joining galactic civilization. "Commander," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I found their real orders." The mission files revealed that the Indomitable hadn't been on a routine patrol. It had been conducting the final phase of a massive intelligence operation that had been running for decades. Every human ship, every diplomat, every trader had been gathering data for this moment. They've been preparing for galactic war since the day they made first contact, So-young reported, reading through the classified documents. Every interaction with other species has been part of this operation. The files showed the incredible scope of human planning. They had identified every major military installation in Union space. They knew the locations of fleet bases, weapons, manufacturing facilities, and command centers for dozens of species. But more than that, they had been conducting detailed economic analysis. They knew which planets produced food, which systems generated power, and which trade routes were critical for each species' survival. They're not just planning to fight our militaries, Dr. Yuna realized as she read through the economic intelligence reports. They're planning to starve us. Captain Dong Ho found files that confirmed their worst fears. Humans had developed detailed plans for attacking civilian infrastructure, not just military targets, but hospitals, schools, food distribution centers, and water treatment plants. This is total war planning, he said grimly. They're preparing to destroy entire civilizations. Engineer Heywan discovered that the manufacturing capabilities they'd found weren't just for making spare parts. The human fabrication systems could rapidly produce weapons, ammunition, and even small spacecraft from raw materials. Every asteroid field becomes a potential armory, he explained. They could fight for years without any supply lines, just mining materials and building new weapons. But the most chilling discovery was in the ship's biological warfare section. Dr. Yuna found detailed genetic maps of every species in the galaxy, along with specifications for targeted pathogens that could kill specific alien races while leaving humans unharmed. They could wipe out entire species without affecting themselves or their allies, she said, reading through the horrifying research data. And they've already developed the weapons. The files showed that human bio-warfare capabilities went far beyond simple disease weapons. They had created agents that could destroy crops, kill livestock, and contaminate water supplies. They could make entire planets uninhabitable for specific species. They don't just plan to defeat us, Dr. Yuna continued. They plan to replace us. So Young found evidence that humans had been secretly establishing bases throughout the galaxy, hidden facilities on remote asteroids and uninhabited planets, stockpiled with weapons and supplies for a long war. If this intelligence is accurate, she said, they have the capability to fight a sustained war against the entire Galactic Union, and they could probably win. The strategic analysis files revealed how humans thought about warfare. While other species fought limited conflicts with specific political goals, humans planned for existential wars where only one side would survive. Their doctrine assumed that any serious conflict would eventually threaten human civilian populations, so they had prepared for the possibility that they might need to completely destroy their enemies to ensure their own species' survival. They don't see us as potential allies, Taemin realized. They see us as potential threats that might need to be eliminated. Captain Dong Ho found tactical assessments of every major species' military capabilities. Humans had identified weaknesses in Union defense systems that even the Union military didn't know existed. According to this analysis, he reported, they could cripple our entire fleet before we realized we were under attack. The files showed that humans had been secretly testing Union response times and defensive procedures. Every time a human ship had requested assistance or reported problems, they had been gathering data about how quickly Union forces could respond and what protocols they followed. We've been training them to fight us, Captain Dong Ho said bitterly. Every rescue operation, every joint exercise, every diplomatic meeting has been a learning opportunity for them. Engineer Heywan discovered that human ships were equipped with advanced sensor systems that could detect Union vessels from much greater distances than anyone realized. They could track fleet movements across entire sectors without being detected themselves. They know where all our ships are all the time, he reported. But we have no idea where their ships are unless they want us to know. Dr. Yuna found psychological profiles that showed humans had been studying the behavior patterns of other species leaders. They knew how different alien commanders would likely react in various scenarios, giving them a massive advantage in any conflict. They've turned diplomacy into a weapon, she said. They know exactly how to manipulate us. But perhaps the most terrifying revelation was in the contingency planning files. Humans had prepared for scenarios where Earth itself might be destroyed. They had backup colonies, mobile fleets, and distributed command structures that could continue the war even if their home world was gone. They're prepared to survive as a species even in the worst possible outcome, Tae-min said, reading through the survival protocols. While we would surrender if our homeworlds were threatened, they would keep fighting. The files also revealed that humans had been secretly upgrading their military technology far beyond what other species realized. The weapons and defenses they displayed publicly were deliberately primitive versions of their real capabilities. They've been pretending to be weak, So Young said, accessing classified technology reports. Their real military capabilities are decades ahead of what we thought. As the team absorbed the full scope of human preparations for galactic war, they began to understand that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. These weren't primitive newcomers trying to find their place in civilized society. They were apex predators who had been patiently studying their prey for 50 years, preparing for the moment when they might need to eliminate every other species in the galaxy to ensure their own survival. And the most terrifying part was that they probably had the capability to succeed. The human ship around them no longer felt like a derelict. It felt like the tip of an iceberg, a small glimpse of a vast military machine that had been hidden in plain sight for half a century. As Commander Tae-min prepared to leave the ship with his team, he realized that this discovery would change everything. The galactic community would never again be able to see humans as harmless newcomers. The question now was whether it was already too late to do anything about it. Commander Tae-min and his team had spent nearly a full day exploring the human derelict. They had seen enough to know that everything the galaxy believed about humanity was dangerously wrong. As they prepared to return to their own ship, none of them could shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Something's not right," Captain Dong-ho said as they gathered their equipment. "This ship feels too intact for something that took this much damage." Dr. Yuna had been thinking the same thing. The external damage looked severe, but most of the internal systems are still functional. It's almost like the damage was deliberate, Engineer Hae-won finished, made to look worse than it actually is. So Young checked her scanner readings one more time. "I'm still not detecting any life signs, but these human systems are so different from ours, maybe our scanners can't read them properly." As they made, their way back toward the docking tube that connected to their ship, motion sensors throughout the human vessel began activating. Red lights started flashing in the corridors, and a low humming sound filled the air. "The ship's powering up," Hae-won said, checking his instruments in alarm. Before anyone could react, blast doors slammed shut behind them, cutting off their retreat. Emergency lighting came on throughout the ship, revealing details they hadn't been able to see before. "We're trapped," Captain Dong-ho said, reaching for his weapon. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," came a voice from speakers hidden in the walls. The voice spoke perfect galactic standard, but with the slight accent that marked it as human. Commander Tae-min felt his blood turn cold as he realized what had happened. "The ship isn't abandoned," he said quietly. "Very good, Commander," the voice replied. "You're quicker than most species we've tested." Footsteps echoed from corridors ahead of them. A group of humans emerged from hidden compartments, wearing combat armor and carrying weapons. They moved with the confident precision of experienced soldiers. The leader removed his helmet, revealing a human male with short, dark hair and intelligent eyes. He looked to be middle-aged by human standards, with the bearing of someone used to command. "I'm Captain Jin-woo of the UES Indomitable," he said calmly. "And you've just completed the most comprehensive examination of a human warship by non-humans in galactic history." "You've been watching us this whole time," Dr. Yuna said, more curious than afraid. "Every moment," Captain Jin-woo confirmed. "We needed to see how other species would analyze our technology. What you would find, what you would miss, and how you would interpret what you discovered." So Young looked around at the human soldiers surrounding them. "This was all a test." "An intelligence operation," the human captain corrected. "We needed to understand how the galactic community would react to learning about our true capabilities." Commander Taemin found his voice. The damage to your ship? Carefully designed to look authentic, Captain Jin Woo replied. We've learned that most species won't examine something too closely if it appears damaged beyond repair. You almost didn't board at all. But why reveal yourselves now? Captain Dong Ho asked. You could have let us leave without knowing we'd been deceived. Captain Jinwoo gestured for them to follow him. Because the test is complete, and you need to understand what you've really discovered here. He led them to a section of the ship they hadn't explored, a large conference room that had been hidden behind false walls. Inside, human officers were monitoring dozens of screens showing data about their exploration. We recorded everything, Captain Jinwoo explained. Every scan you made, every file you accessed, every conversation you had. We now know exactly how Union intelligence analyzes unknown technology. Dr. Yuna stared at the monitoring equipment. You've been studying us while we studied you. Fair is fair, the human captain replied with what might have been a smile. But more importantly, we wanted you to see what you've seen. We wanted the Galactic Union to know what humanity is really capable of. You want us to be afraid of you, Taemin said. We want you to respect us, Captain Jinwoo corrected. Fear can lead to stupid decisions. Respect leads to wise ones. The human captain activated a large display screen that showed technical specifications, far beyond anything they had discovered during their exploration. What you found was impressive, he said, but it was only the beginning. Our real capabilities are much more advanced. The screen showed weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets, defensive technologies that could make ships nearly invulnerable, and manufacturing capabilities that could build new vessels in a matter of days rather than months. Every human ship can produce more human ships, Captain Jinwoo explained. Give us time and raw materials and we can turn a single vessel into an entire fleet. Engineer Hae-won stared at the specifications in disbelief. This level of technology should take centuries to develop. It would, for most species, the human agreed. But humans have certain advantages when it comes to rapid technological advancement. He showed them records of human development since joining galactic civilization. While other species had assumed humans were slowly catching up to galactic standards, they had actually been advancing at an incredible rate. We learn very quickly, Captain Jinwoo said. And we share everything we learn with every human immediately. When one human discovers something new, every human in the galaxy knows about it within hours. So Young understood the implications immediately. You're not just individual ships or even individual fleets. You're one giant network. Every human vessel, every human colony, every human installation is connected, the captain confirmed. We think and fight as a single organism. But Captain Jinwoo wasn't finished with his revelations. He showed them intelligence reports that revealed the true scope of human activities throughout the galaxy. While you've been watching us, we've been watching everyone, he said. We know more about galactic civilization than any species in the Union, including your own leadership. The reports showed detailed knowledge of political movements, economic trends, and military capabilities across hundreds of species and thousands of worlds. We've been preparing for the possibility of galactic conflict since the day we made first contact, Captain Jinwoo continued. Not because we wanted war, but because we assumed it was inevitable. Why inevitable? Dr. Yuna asked. Because that's how evolution works, the human captain replied. Species expand until they come into conflict with other species. Eventually, someone decides they need more resources than they can share. He showed them historical records of conflicts throughout galactic history. Every few centuries, some species or alliance would decide to expand aggressively, leading to wars that devastated entire sectors. We studied the patterns, Captain Jinwoo said, and we prepared for the logical conclusion. Commander Taemin realized what the human was telling them. You've prepared to fight the entire galaxy if necessary. And win, Captain Jinwoo added quietly. We don't start fights, Commander, but we finish them. The human captain deactivated the display and turned to face them directly. Now you have a choice to make. You can report what you've learned here and recommend that the Union treat humanity as a threat to be eliminated, or you can recommend that we be treated as equals deserving of respect. What happens if we choose the first option? Captain Dong Ho asked. Then you'll discover whether human military capabilities are as advanced as we claim. Captain Jin Woo replied calmly. We hope it doesn't come to that, but we're prepared for any outcome. And if we choose the second option? Then humanity continues to be a peaceful member of galactic civilization, contributing to scientific advancement and economic prosperity. We prefer this outcome. As the human soldiers escorted them back to their docking tube, Captain Jin Woo had one final message for them. We don't want to rule the galaxy, he said. We just want to make sure no one else rules us. Treat us as equals, and we'll be the best allies you could ask for. Treat us as threats to be eliminated, and you'll discover why humans have survived everything the universe has thrown at us so far. As Commander Taemin and his team returned to their own ship, they carried with them the knowledge that would change galactic civilization forever. Humanity wasn't just another member species. They were potentially the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. The question now was whether the galactic community was wise enough to choose respect over fear, cooperation over conflict, because if they chose wrong, they might not get a second chance to choose anything at all.